I didn't know what to do. I needed to call loved ones and figure out what was going on. I was just so distraught. It was really hard. And then going to tell my girls, hey, mom isn't going to work, at that business anymore. Mom's going to try to get a new job where I get to spend even more time with you. I'm trying to spin it all these positive ways when I'm struggling. I mean, I made great money. I was a 6-figure income earner. And then all of a sudden, I had a short severance pay package, but it wasn't going to last me too long. And so I was so scared.
What would you do if you had to start over? If one day you went into work and your boss met you at the door and you knew it wasn't going to be good news? What if that meant you might lose your home and you might not be able to provide for your children for a while? Well, my guest, Andrea, talks about that experience and how God used it in a really surprising way to put her on a journey she never expected. He had a whole new career in mind for her, only she didn't know it on the day she lost her job. If you're in a season of starting over, I know you'll find hope in Andrea's story. On Life Repurposed, you'll find a blend of practical wisdom and biblical inspiration that's designed to help you navigate everyday life with faith, purpose, and hope. We focus on personal and spiritual growth with a range of topics from improving your relationships and discovering your purpose to setting and achieving goals, plus tools and resources to help you live your repurposed life. I'm your host, Michelle Rayburn, the author of books and Bible studies about finding hope in the trashy stuff of life. Andrea Gribble's passion is helping schools recognize their daily awesomeness and sharing that story with the world. To date, she has trained more than 3,000 school communicators through webinars, workshops, and in-person speaking events. She is also a frequent presenter at the annual National School PR Association seminar and appears at state chapters and other school marketing associations throughout the year. She's built a team that celebrates hundreds of schools across the country. Social School for EDU, starts with a hashtag, provides full social media management and runs a vibrant online community that provides ongoing professional development for school social media champions. She also hosts a weekly podcast called Mastering Social Media for Schools, and she's the author of a book called Social Media for Schools. We're going to be talking today about Andrea's story of starting over. So let's jump into the conversation as Andrea shares her life repurposed story. Andrea, thank you so much for being here with me today.
I am excited. We could be doing this in person, Michelle. We're neighbors.
I know we could. We're so close to each other. Have you ever tried recording a podcast episode in person, though?
I know. It's much better when you're in different rooms.
It is. Like, even when Phil and I have tried to do one together, I feel like it's better if we're not in the same room because I keep hearing all of his, fidgeting and stuff picking up on my microphone.
Yes, very true. So distance is good.
Yes, this is great. I was trying to remember where we officially met because you grew up in the community I live in now. We moved here for my husband's job about 18 years ago. I don't know, did we first meet in a women's business networking group or was it as your daughter's piano teacher?
I think it was my daughter's piano teacher.
Okay.
So you did such a beautiful job. She wanted to learn how to play piano. And I don't know, you taught her for a couple of years. So that was...
I did. I feel so old because she's graduating from high school this year.
And I'm her mom, so I really feel old, but it's all good.
She was so small when she started. I think maybe first grade. Her feet couldn't touch the pedals.
Right. Yeah. And she stuck at it for a while. That was in some of our transition time as a family too. So we went through it all.
Yeah. Well, I love how people's paths cross and how they connect. Because when we first met, I didn't know your whole story at all. And then I think we roomed together at a conference for that networking group. And I got to know you a little bit more, learned more about your story, then collaborated on some business things. And then that really long road came down to recently helping you publish a book.
Yeah. And what a great process that was. It's so funny when I tell people I wrote a book and they're like amazed. which I'm still amazed as well. But it's like, oh my gosh, if you are ever going to write a book, you need to contact Michelle Rayburn because you really helped just organize and bring it all to life in such a beautiful way. It's a self-published book, but you would never, ever guess it. And so as far as you being, 10 minutes from my house, and we're literally in the middle of nowhere, Michelle. So the
We are.
fact that we're here together is awesome.
Some people call it like the armpit of Wisconsin. Like nobody knows where New Auburn is.
Right. Yeah.
But I love that working alongside of you, especially on that project, I got to know more of your story. And I knew that my listeners would want to hear more of your story too. And I knew a little bit of your do-over, but really not the whole thing. So I know I'd love to be able to go back and hear all about your childhood. And, I'm sure you have lots of things to tell. But I know that my audience will most relate to having to start something over again. So tell me a little bit about the situation you found yourself in as a young mom.
Yeah. So it was 2013, November, right before Thanksgiving. And so getting ready for the holidays. I've got two young girls. At that point, I was a divorced mom, which, wasn't how I really designed my life, but that is how it ended up. And I was a single mom. I had two amazing little girls. I walked into work one day. I was a product marketing manager, and I had worked with this company for 13 and a half years since I had gotten out of college. And I walked in and I met our VP of operations at the door, and he was there to meet me, Michelle. So being in management, I knew what that meant. And my job had been eliminated. And I was so upset. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is happening to me. I have a family to support. I've got a house to pay for. Like, what am I going to do? And I thought it was the end of the world. I was so mad and full of all of the feelings. And in hindsight, it was like the biggest blessing of my life was happening then. It definitely was not a setback. It was really, God was setting me up for, my true calling and being able to lean into my gifts. And it was not an easy road. I started networking right away, looking for jobs. And I actually was encouraged by another female entrepreneur. I worked with her husband at the a corporation that I was at. And she just said, Andrea, a lot of people need help. Like if they're running a business, they need help with social media because they're so busy running their business that they don't have time to do social media. Now, I don't have a background in social media. I never went to college for social media. I went to college for chemistry. Okay. So I did not go to college for this, but I'm like, hey, I can do this. I can learn. So much available online. So I just kind of jumped in. And because I got started, which was very hard to do, but it's like, okay, I remember, Michelle, and I don't know if you remember back to this when you started freelancing, but I remember one day I was up early and I was working out and I'm like, I'm my own boss. And then the next week I'm like, I'm my own boss. Like I am the one who, it's all on me if I'm going to get a paycheck or not. Right.
Yes.
So it was very stressful. But I'm so thankful for that journey that led me into the job and the business that I have today, which is helping schools. So I now focus on helping schools with social media. It was a really cool connection. My mom worked at the school as the district administrative secretary. She likes to talk and told the superintendent that I'd lost my job and was trying this stuff out with social media. Brian Henning actually went to my same church as well. And my girls go to school at that school. And so he just, kind of wrote me this little email, says, hey, how about you help us with social media? And I was like, awesome, because it's not really like marketing. You're just like celebrating all the great things happening. And because of that one door that was opened by Brian, it's led me into serving hundreds and hundreds of schools across the country. I wake up every morning excited to share the positive things that are happening in our schools and with our students and staff. And I really, really feel blessed.
You do a fantastic job of it too. I have two children and a daughter-in-law who teach in that school district, and I get to see those social media posts, and I love your enthusiasm for kids and for learning. So it's fantastic. But I want to rewind a little bit because You talked about losing your job and it being your greatest blessing. And I can tell that you've gone through this journey where you can say that all in one sentence now. But I'm wondering, like, what did it feel like in that moment when you went back out to your car after you were told you lost your job and you had to go home to your little girls?
Well, I didn't even have a cell phone, Michelle. It was a company owned laptop and cell phone. So you walk out and you literally have nothing. I mean, think of that right now. If you didn't have your
Mm-hmm.
cell phone, like what do you even do? I was lucky enough. One of my close friends through work was actually home that day on vacation or something, and I just drove to her house. It was
Mm-hmm.
only a mile away, and I didn't know what to do. I needed to call loved ones and figure out what was going on. I was just so distraught. It was really hard. And
Mm-hmm.
then going to tell my girls, hey, mom isn't going to work, at that business anymore. Mom's going to try to get a new job where I get to spend even more time with you. I'm trying to spin it all these positive ways when I'm struggling. I mean, I made great money. I was a six-figure income earner. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I had a short severance pay
Mm-hmm.
package, but it wasn't going to last me too long. And so I was so scared. And I had people that loved me and supported me and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I built my own house when I was 24 years old. Okay. I had a beautiful 5-bedroom home on 10 acres of land. I've been independent my whole life, and to be put on your back at 35 with
Mm-hmm.
two girls. I think Aaliyah was 9 and Kyra was 7 when I lost my job. And it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was
Mm-hmm.
just so frightened, and anxiety definitely got into my life because I just had so many uncertainties. But the right people came into my life and kind of
Mm-hmm.
opened doors, and I decided, hey, like if I'm going to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on me. So why not just try this? What's the worst that can happen? And there's obviously lots of twists and turns along that
Yeah.
journey to where I am today. But it's really cool. I think the coolest thing, Michelle, is for my kids. I have 4 stepsons. I've got my 2 daughters. For them to get that front row seat to that journey,
Mm-hmm.
um, is like there is nothing in this world that they cannot accomplish, because I was nobody. I knew nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm known in this little niche
Right.
for social media
And
for
not
schools.
only here, all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just got a contract with a school in California because they were looking for a speaker, and they asked around and somebody said I was fantastic. So I'm like, that's awesome. People are talking about me in California when I'm just
That's fun.
here in Wisconsin.
Did you keep your house in that journey?
So I kept my house for a little bit. I ended up having to sell my house, and that was a big, big decision. It was really, really
Mm-hmm.
hard. I was about 6 months into my business, and I just couldn't afford it anymore, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you start a business, you're really not making any money to begin with.
No.
Now, I had in that, I had actually, my anxiety got so bad. I was going to a Christian counselor. I eventually had to get on some medication for my anxiety, but I actually went and interviewed for a job, and I got the offer. And it was going to be $82,000 a year and 21 days of paid vacation and, benefits, life insurance, health
Mm-hmm.
insurance, like everything I needed to take care of my
Mm-hmm. Right.
family. And so and by the way, I got that job offer the day I was moving out of my house that I had built,
Mm-hmm.
10 years earlier and moved in, right? So it was a really hard time. I sat down with Bill. Bill is now my husband. But we were dating at the time, and I'm just like, I got to take this job. Like, I can't not take this. My family needs this. Like, and he was the one that was just like, Andrea, like you can always go back and get a job. Like I know this seems like the perfect job for you, but you can go back and get a job. But you can't start
Mm-hmm.
and stop and start a business like this. And I had just signed my third school, you know, and so
Mm-hmm.
basically the next day I woke up and I'm like, God has more in his plans for me than measuring window parts, and I'm going to give it everything I got for the next 6 months. And if it's not right by then I can go back and I can get a job then, because I'll definitely be able to do that. And it's because of that decision and that conversation, the fact that I did not give up, that all of a sudden, not too much time. I had 11 schools and I had a few stay-at-home moms on my team, and everything really started to make sense as far as the direction I was going in. So I was excited, but it was still
Yeah.
nerve-wracking, because I was still like, in that time when I didn't take that job and I had sold my house, I had to move in with my parents. Like, you talk about being,
That's a big
and
change.
with two girls, right? Two little girls. My parents are wonderful, and I stayed with them for a year part-time when I had my girls. But that was a big swallow your pride type of move, because I was so independent my entire life. I had my entire life planned out. I'm totally type A. And then when you get thrown on your back like that, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like I can't even. I mean, I remember we got connected and also in a networking group in Polka Dot. And I remember not being able to afford to eat dinner, like lunch, with everybody. And I remember one time my mom left me money on my seat of my car. She wouldn't give it to me. She left it on my car, in my car. And she's like, that way you can eat with all of the ladies. And it's hard. I was on assistance for a while, and like Badger Care, where they help you out with your insurance. And
Yeah.
it was hard, but it taught me so much, and has made me a better mom, a better wife, a better daughter, all of that.
Did you always have a faith foundation in your life?
I did. God, I was brought up in a strong Lutheran household and got confirmed, but I would say, my walk with Jesus and with God is kind of like this, it's just like, and what I know looking back is my life is a lot better when I have a closer relationship. And it's kind of funny, because the church we attend now is in Woodbury, Minnesota, and we mainly participate online because we're kind of over in Wisconsin. We do still have a home in Woodbury, but we're mostly over here. And it was actually Bill's ex-wife that started to take his boys to this church. So we're like, hey, for continuity, let's check this church out. Oh my gosh, this church is just amazing. And we have been able to grow in our faith so much. And it went from crying because I didn't know what was going to happen and all of the uncertainty, to now when the songs are sung, crying with so much joy, and what God has done in my life and the people he's brought into it, and the impact that I've been able to make using the gifts that he gave me, because I love to talk. I love to cheer people on. It's naturally like who I am. I get to do that every single day in my job to these people who have hard jobs of school communication and social media and dealing with negativity and all of that. But I've really been able to apply some hope and some light and some teaching and some inspiration. And that's been a joy.
There's so much temptation for somebody with a type A driven personality to do logical things. So that job offer sounded like a logical thing. Like, I need money and here's a job. And so that leap of faith in pursuing this dream, which wasn't even a dream when you were working that other full-time job. That's what's amazing. It's like, you didn't even think about it. And then there's this new path. I love it because it's like this whole picture of life repurposed. It usually begins with something unexpected like that, either an unexpected hardship or an unexpected blessing, or a hardship that turns into a blessing. So I appreciate that part of your story. What are you seeing God doing in your life now? Like, as you're stepping forward?
Oh, so much. I just joined a Bible study, which is I've never really been in an adult Bible study before. And one of the gals on my team, she's a stay-at-home mom. Well, she actually teaches her kids. Like, she does homeschooling for her 3 kids. She's amazing. I've known her since I was in high school. And, we were just talking about our faith journeys just on a recent trip. And then she's like, I have this Bible study. And then, she just mentioned it. She didn't even really ask me. But then I'm like, Angie, could I come? And she's like, yeah. And I knew she would say, okay. So that's really cool. My husband, he wasn't really raised in a Christian home. He's really grown in his faith since we've been together. We go to Bible camp every summer as a family up to Luther Park, which is where I was a camp counselor back in the day. But I just recently bought my husband his first Bible. I didn't realize that he had never had his own. And so God really moved me to buy him his own Bible. Like here's an awesome gift. And we just booked a trip to the Mediterranean Sea. We're going on a cruise with one of our pastors is the guide, and we are going to walk in some of the places where Apostle Paul walked in regards to Bible times. And I'm 45, my husband's a little bit older than I am, but it's like, why not now? Because this is going to bring the Bible to life. Like we're going to be able to,
that's so cool.
We'll be able to see where this stuff happened. And so it just happened. It landed right in between 2 speaking gigs in September. And I'm like, honey, I really want to go, especially with this pastor, Pastor Phil. And Pastor Phil's going to baptize my husband there.
That gives me chills.
He's never been baptized, and I've always wanted. And so I called the pastor and I just said, do you think that would be possible? And he said, absolutely. And
that is
I'm
amazing.
so excited about that too.
So cool. One of the really cool things about your story too, you're talking about your husband, Bill, but with this package, your family tripled. So you had 2 girls and you briefly mentioned that Bill had 4 boys. What is it like after having only girls, having suddenly 4 boys at your house when they all come to visit?
Yeah, well, it's different now. Like they're all older, right? My youngest is a freshman, then I got a sophomore. I got 2 graduating this year, Michelle. So, but back when they were little, it was like, oh my gosh, these boys have so much energy. They are just a handful, and they're always on stage and they're performing, and we had so much fun. And it's fun now as I look back on old videos getting ready for graduation, how my daughter will be like, oh my gosh, I forgot we were that little when we were connected, because it was like back in 2014, I think, when they first met, which would be 9 years ago now. So yeah, they were like 8 years old, 8 and 6 years old, my girls.
Yeah.
So it was a big adjustment. And then Bill had to get used to like all the drama and the fashion and the hair, where he's like, the boys, they will roll out of bed. They put on whatever kind of clothes they, wore yesterday. They don't care.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, but it has sure made life complete. And I have tried to always instill with my girls, like, sometimes life, it's not what you had planned. But think of all the blessings that we have because it did end up this way. There's so much to be thankful for, people that you meet and experiences that you get to have and connections you get to make that never would have happened if it had happened anywhere, any other way. And so I've just tried to really lean into that and also lean into, I'm not perfect. And God certainly knows that. And I got to try to be a little bit better every day. And definitely as I grow closer to him, every day does get better,
Recently, a song came on the radio and it brought me back to, it's so weird. You sang it to your husband at your wedding reception, and I happened to be at Andrea's wedding reception. I think it was like an Ed Sheeran song that you sang. Is that?
Well, yeah, he sang an Ed Sheeran song when we danced, and then I sang.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
I sing another song because I like to sing. But yes, that Ed Sheeran song, I can't even remember. We were just listening to it. I can't even remember the name, but
it's like the words are like, we found love right where we are as part of the chorus. And I just remember, like, every time I hear that part, I'm like, I remember you and Bill dancing at your wedding. But anyway, it's funny how memories like that trigger. And I remember feeling that emotion of like, it felt like a new beginning. There was so many beautiful things about that. And I love hearing how your story has unfolded since then. I'd love to know what you would say to somebody who is experiencing a really difficult point right now. They're uncertain. They're not sure what's coming next. God's about to do some repurposing. What words do you have to say to that woman who's listening?
Well, I know that if I could tell myself anything at that time in my life where you don't, you just don't know the right next step. You're not sure if it's worth it. I would say it is worth it. Like, and the joy is in the journey. Sometimes you're so focused on a destination and I got to get here and I got to get there. Just enjoying and knowing how much you're learning. Cause that's what I realize now, Michelle. I realize that if social media for schools totally went away tomorrow, I have skills that I could use to build a business again so easily. Like, but you don't believe that when you first start.
Right.
So I think leaning in and really surrounding yourself with professional development and people that are where you want to be. You're listening to this podcast right now. I listened to so many podcasts when I got laid off because guess what? It's free. Like you don't have to pay for it and you get so many ideas. So just the fact of reading books and listening to professional development, all of this can happen for you. And I believe in people so much, but you've got to be able to believe in yourself. And it's not easy, especially when you're living in your parents' basement and you can't buy a bottle of water or a pack of gum. Like that really sucks. When I think back, we had so many good memories, Michelle. Like we couldn't go out to eat. We couldn't go on vacation. There was a lot of things that we could not do, but we had each other. And I remember when I had to tell Aaliyah that we were selling our house and she was born basically in that house, and she just was like, just go back and get your job. Just ask them for your job back. And I'm just like, Aaliyah, like we are healthy. I could be saying I, have a medical condition, cancer or something. Like we still have each other and we're going to build great memories. And you know what we did? Just over Mother's Day, we started talking about all these memories that we made that year when we stayed at my mom and dad's house. So there's a lot to be thankful for. It's all coming together and it'll make sense down the road. It doesn't make sense right now, but as it comes together, it'll be like, oh, that's what God was doing. What is God trying to teach me here? What people is he bringing into my life? I think that's something good to focus on.
For me, it's hard for me to wait. I always want to know what the end is going to be now. And so it is hard to trust that God has the bigger picture in his hand when I can only see this teeny piece of it. I appreciate you sharing that story because I think there are people who are figuratively sitting around this table with us right now who can really feel that heart of your message. So I really appreciate that. I often like to leave people with a resource. And oftentimes that might be, self-help books and webinars or things like that. And yours is really unique. But I do want to share your book as a resource for people because somebody knows somebody who either does social media or maybe they're a teacher who's listening and they are in charge of social media for their school. So I want you to tell us about your book.
Yes. So my book is called Social Media for Schools. The byline is proven storytelling strategies and ideas to celebrate your students and staff while keeping your sanity. Like you said, there's a lot of educators in your life. As you're listening to this, somebody in education. They don't have a class that really talks about social media for a school district or a private school, charter school, anything. What I put together in this 20 chapter book, and Michelle so eloquently helped me pull, dozens and dozens of stories from across the country of, developing a system to tell stories, dealing with negativity, branding, how to tell a story, what's engaging, writing great captions. We really tried to put everything together. And the reason I wrote this book is I've written tons of blogs. I have a weekly podcast called Mastering Social Media for Schools. In one podcast episode or one blog or one training webinar that I do, there is no way that I can capture kind of all my best advice. And in little pockets, it can be good, but it can't be great because it is a system and it's a process and it's an art and a skill all wrapped in one. And so that's really what I tried to pull together in this book. So this would be a great book for a superintendent, a principal, a teacher, or a volunteer that's helping a school celebrate their schools on channels like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn.
This would also be a great resource for any listener who's in a school district that really isn't doing much with social media, who might want to propose that they could get involved in helping that school. You have training and all kinds of things that you offer that you could help somebody get that launched.
And usually it takes somebody that is passionate about it. I just spoke with a school from down by Milwaukee today, and it was so fun because all of the staff members were like, we have amazing things happening. We need to get these stories out to these parents. We need to get them more engaged. Okay. So that's kind of rare because sometimes teachers are so focused just on their single classroom. They're not thinking about that bigger picture. But to know that, hey, if you know that your story deserves to be told, you know, there's amazing things that people have no idea that they're happening in your school. Social media can be a perfect fit. And staff members, teachers, paraprofessionals, a media specialist, an administrative assistant, you are the perfect person to actually be able to just dedicate a little bit of time every day. But with the system we teach, we get stories from everybody, and then you can help put those out on social media. So yes, you can definitely pick up the copy. It's free on Kindle Unlimited. So you can get access if you're a Kindle Unlimited user, you can read this for free. So I'd definitely recommend, or check out my website, which I'm sure you'll link in the show notes.
I will. Yes. And speaking of, where can people find you? Tell us your website or where you'd like to connect on social media.
Yeah. So I'm out on Twitter at Andrea Gribble. And then my website has all the ways to contact me. And that's socialschool4 edu.com. So socialschool4edu.com has my phone number. It's got my email. You can email me out anything if you've got questions. And I just really want to encourage you, like if you're at that crossroads and you just need to talk to somebody, especially being a woman, and I was a single mom at the time. I mean, it was hard. I meet people all the time, like in the airport, and they're traveling for work, and they're can't get a rental car, and they're away from their kids all the time. And I start talking to them about my story, and they're like, oh my gosh, do you think I could really do something like that? I'm like, yeah, you can, because I did it. And if I can do it, you can do it. You just have to be determined. And I think because of that hardship, because of losing my job, that's the reason why I am where I am today. And so that is why I can truly say, thank goodness I lost my job in 2013.
You're such a cheerleader for others. And one of the most beautiful things about your business model is that this is not only helping you and helping schools, but you hire people to work on your team. And what difference has that made in some of their lives? You don't have to name names, but just think of like how that I don't know what you call it, like
butterfly effect, right? Like,
yes, that's what it is. I was trying to think of the term.
And it's rare, you guys, that you can think of a term that Michelle can't, because she's such an amazing writer. Well, I work with stay-at-home moms, Michelle, and they work with me on a part-time basis. COVID hit. If you would have even talked about something like that in 2018 or 19, or you'd been like, no, that's not going to happen. When that happened, Michelle, it was such a blessing in these women's lives, who many of them used to be teachers. Okay. So they would have had to be teaching plus like helping their own kids learn. And some of them had little kids. Like I can't imagine, my youngest was in 6th grade. So she was pretty independent. These people with kindergarten and first graders, like, how do you do online school? So these women, we never lost an account. We never, they were able to keep their income coming in, and they were able to do their jobs and help their kids. That's one of the biggest blessings. Another blessing, one of my team members, her sister was diagnosed with cancer. 2 young kids. I mean, like 38 years old. So it's just unimaginable. She was able to go and stay with her sister as she started chemotherapy and help take care of those little ones and still do her job because it was all remote. As long as she had her computer and her phone, she could work around helping out her sister. We've had other issues, health issues with family members and friends that have been like that as well, that we can literally, as long as we got good internet, we can do our job. And I never would have had the vision that it would make that kind of impact. But I remember a story that I had told my team, but I just feel like when I wanted to give up, like God had those women's names written on my heart. And I didn't know it. But those women have blessed me back countless times. I mean, I just feel so lucky to do what I do. And we have such an uplifting and supportive group. It's just amazing. It doesn't mean that we don't have hard days, because we do. I mean, face it, we deal with social media. So you're like, oh my gosh. But we really have built something that I am so proud of. And I don't think I ever would have been able to build that if I wasn't the boss, right? And so I've been able to put together a team that I think has made a difference in our own lives, but then a team that I think we celebrate like over 140,000 kids a day with the 87 school districts we partner with. And then we serve a lot more in our membership group. So it's a big blessing to know that, hey, we're trying to use social media for good and to highlight the positive things that are happening in our schools.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. It's been encouraging to me, and I know there's somebody out there listening that's totally encouraged by your words today. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you just have on your heart that you wanted to say today?
Just that I didn't think I wanted to write another book, but as soon as I published this one, it's like having a baby, and then you're like, oh, it's really cute. This was fun. I'm going to do it again. So I'm really looking forward to the day that I can write a book with your help again on more of my faith journey and my entrepreneurial, journey, and how faith was entwined in that. And so stay tuned for that version of Andrea Gribble, because I'm excited to share that story as well. But I am just so thankful. I'm really thankful for you and your help in this process. And again, any listeners, I know that you're busy, so you don't want me to promote you too much, but Michelle is amazing to work with. And it was just such a privilege to get to work on this project with you.
Thank you. You're so sweet, and you were fun to work with too. And I can't wait for that next book, because that's another passion that's on your heart. And whenever God gives us a passion for something, like, watch out.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I'm going to the Mediterranean to start to do some research, so it's all
Take
good.
some notes.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you so much, everybody. You can do it. God's got your back. Keep going.
You'll find the show notes for this episode at michellerayburn.com/154. And there I will link up to Andrea's book and her website and anything else we talked about in this episode. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again next time. You've been listening to Life Repurposed. If you'd like bonus resources sent to your inbox each week, be sure to sign up at michellerayburn.com.